I hit the button, Catch, to go live.
What happened?
You didn't hit the button to go live.
No, I did.
No, you just played the intro. You just played the intro.
I was pushing it, and I was waiting for it to pop up.
Well, we're live now. We're live.
Live now. That's all that matters. Okay. Yes.
Hello.
We're off to a great start.
Welcome to the Orange Bloods Modcast. That was just all of that behind the scenes. Really weird. I'm Jeff. That's Anwar. Jason, Alex. Glad to be with you on a Tuesday when Anwar is in Destin, Florida for SEC meetings, not media day, meetings. Before we jump too much into this, do us a solid. Despite the awful start, hit that thumbs up button. Make it a pity like today, given the start. We'll also take your subscriptions to the channel, notifications, all that stuff. Just knock it all out, and then you never have to think about it ever again. And welcome to everybody in the Specs chat. We appreciate all of your comments. We'll take your super chats. Feel free to participate and go with us on this journey for the next 35, 40 minutes or so. Anwar, let's just start with the Sarkeesian press conference earlier today. By the way, nice job on Feinbaum moments ago leading up to the show. Your biggest single takeaway from all of the things that were said, the thing that you thought was most notable was what?
Are we talking about so there's two sessions. We're talking about there was the
you take us where you want to take us.
Okay. Well, I think so there was an Austin-based session for the people from Austin who actually, made the trip. Not very many of us, by the way, so it's easy to pull that off. There was a couple of interesting takes, from there. I thought that one, Sark basically saying, they're closed for business as far as the transfer portal is concerned. I like our roster. I feel pretty good about everything. And unless something special happens, AKA some amazing athlete drops out of the sky, that they're absolutely done is with the transfer portal thing. And then someone had asked him about, well, what does that even include punters? He's like, yep, well, we don't need a punter either. I was like, okay. And so, he's like, we love Michael Kern, and Michael Kern is our guy. Michael Kern is going to do all good things for University of Texas. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there's a hat tip for Michael Kern as far as that. So I think for me, Catch, that probably was, as far as the podium stuff is interesting. I think the on podium things. There was a lot of things, Catch, that we can talk about with Sark. He was asked about what might happen if there's scholarship limits. He was asked about NIL. I asked him a little bit about that and his approach to it. And Catch, it goes back to the thing that I will write for Sunday, that he views it just kind of like NFL-ish kind of things. And there was a lot of meat on the bone there. But I'll start with them being closed for business with the transfer portal, with the players getting ready to report on the 1st.
Jason, did you watch the video before the show? Okay. So was there anything from that stood out? I kind of just want to get it all on the table, and then we can kind of pick it apart from there.
Yeah, it looked like Sark had been on a beach, dude. He looked like super tan. That's one thing that stood out. Am I wrong, Anwar? I swear it looked like
if he wasn't hanging with me. You probably have to ask Lane, like, if what they were doing yesterday, but I don't know.
Sark looks like he's coming off a week-long Caribbean vacation. But to me, what stood out is he's just pretty chill. And Anwar asked him like about the NFL stuff, and just his answers are always like, dude, you have to adjust to the changes. This game is constantly changing. And I really do think he's done as good a job as really any coach that I can think of in adjusting to the changes with NIL and transfer portal. He talked about, someone asked him about transfer portal December window. And you think back in December, man, they're trying to sign their recruiting class. They're recruiting transfer portal players, readying for the college football playoffs. Man, that was just a maddening time. But it never seems to stress him out or never seems to bother him. Who knows? Maybe he goes home and breaks things at home, but he seemed pretty relaxed today. And he just said, hey, man, you have to constantly change with these changes. And he likes most of them, it seems like. And I will say this, it's a lot easier to adjust with the changes when we're talking NIL and transfer when you're the University of Texas, right? Versus, it's probably a hell of a lot harder for Baylor or somebody to adjust to those changes, because in Texas, you're poaching other people's players and you've got deep NIL pockets. But I do think he's done a tremendous job. And a lot of the conversation today was just about some of these changes they're having to navigate and potentially more upcoming changes. And Sark's like, hey, dude, we'll be ready for it. And he'll just roll with the punches and have a plan. And his plan seems to be working.
Alex, same question.
Well, for me, what I'm most interested in with all this stuff is the injury reporting. And it just has to do with the fact that, for one, I just from a personal level, I want to know. I want to know that these designations week to week. I feel like it helps us to understand what we can expect. What we can expect from players and timelines to return and things like that. But also, it just, man, it brings up a million questions for me. Obviously, somebody like me that cares a lot about. I care a lot about the gaming aspect of this, and I care about fantasy, and I care about gambling and sports betting and all the rest of it. And it's a clear signal if the SEC, the big boys in college football, are saying we need to. There's a reason why they're doing this. They're trying to give more information to people that want to engage with these football games and their various ways in the states where it's allowed. And I think it's great. My question is, I have a million questions about it, though. It's like, if they do this in the SEC, would it only be whenever SEC teams play each other that this needs to happen? Because let's say, there's some kind of injury reporting thing. Texas plays Michigan, all week. Texas is having to give out designations on their players, whereas like Michigan's not. I don't think that the SEC would want to put their teams at a competitive disadvantage like that. So is this an only inter-SEC play? Do other conferences follow suit? It's like it's a whole big can of worms that they're just saying, all right, we're going to just put this thing out, we're going to open it up, and we're going to see what happens with it. And so whenever Sark was at, I just thought it was so interesting. He was asked today, what are you going to do about people that try and skirt the rules and all the rest? And Sark just said, fine us. Do like the NFL does. Like we love our money as coaches. We like to make our money and we like to keep it. And that to me is Sark saying kind of the same thing he said with NIL, is that, navigating it as Jason was saying, being able to adapt to it, as all this stuff in the Wild West has just been thrown at him. And Sark mentioned that as well. So it was the transfer portal, then it was NIL. Now we're talking about, the injury reporting and stuff. These are things we're just having to adapt to. But to me, it's him saying, look, if I'm going to have to report it, everybody else does. And that could be as much of a competitive advantage for us as well. So I'm fascinated by the whole injury reporting thing. I hope it gets done. And I'm sure through the course of the week, there'll be more reporting on that.
Alex, I think the one thing you have to understand about the SEC is that they don't care about what other people do. Like they know that they are the trendsetters, and whatever they do, everybody else will follow. Like they know, hey, we're going to expand and we're going to add more teams. And then what happened? Everybody else decided conference said they're going to expand and add more teams. So usually the SEC, for the most part, marches to the beat of their own drum. But the reason why they're looking into this, Alex, is not necessarily because they want people to have fun, gambling or have fun, making wagers. It's because they're doing this preemptively so people who bet on sports can stop getting a hold of players on campus, because that's the problem.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's the main problem that they're having, is that people who bet on sports are paying players for information, proprietary information that's benefiting a certain segment of the population. So the thing is that, hey, if they just make this thing a little bit more public, then all of a sudden players are now put at risk, where now they're like, hey, this guy's offering me $50,000, $60,000 for some information. It's more about getting that element off of college campuses more so than anything else. And thank you, Sark After Dark.
But let me just say this though, and like I'm sure there's other things we're going to talk. Clearly, there's a million other things, but just on this, Anwar, do you not think that? And totally agree. You bring up a great point, right? You like if there's a way that you can keep any creeps from coming around there trying to dig up info on your program or possibly even putting that can even come to weird stuff where it can feel like you can even almost put a player in a compromising situation. You know what I mean? So you don't want it. You want to do everything you can to mitigate it. With that being said, would the SEC make Texas report stuff in Michigan week if Michigan didn't have to?
I mean, yeah,
I think that's putting one of your members at a competitive disadvantage.
It's an injury report. They look at it like they look at it one like it's an NFL model too. At the end of the day, everyone else is going to do it at some point. So I don't think I don't think they're worried about the competitive disadvantage portion of it at this moment. I think they're worried about the gambling issue and making sure that's kind of eradicated. I've talked to people on staff who say they have to work to make sure those people who are outside forces don't infiltrate their team, and they work behind. They don't talk about it, but they work really hard to eliminate that. But everything. They're not worried about that, Alex.
I guess I would be, but I guess if they're not, they're not. It's like that's wild. Yeah,
worry's a bit of a subjective word. One person's worry is another person's not concerned, even though they feel the same thing. I want to go back. I was kind of more in line with Jason in terms of my big takeaway on where I thought it was really quite. I'm glad you kind of already have an idea of where your column for Sunday kind of shapes up, because I think it's a really interesting topic. When you first asked him the question, it didn't feel like Sark was buying it completely right away. He was like, yeah, it kind of helps. And then every word that came out of his mouth was like an example of why the NFL was a good experience. And I think it does go into that he's so open about, I evolve. We're evolving creatures. The sport is evolving. And either you evolve or you get run over. And that, I think this period of college football is going to be defined by the new coaches that can swim really well in these waters, and which of the old dinosaurs get left behind, Dabo being, I think, the biggest example of what it looks like when you just don't adjust at all. But that he called the portal. He said, well, in our offices, we call the portal free agency. Just to say that out loud that's a headline. It really is. It's just that so many things get said on a day like this that sometimes things get lost, I think, in the flow. And I know he's made comments like that in the past, but this is a sport still gripping with its new status of having the colleges soon paying the players. NIL is still relatively new. And that for Sarkeesian to just flat out admit, we look at one part of our duties as free agency from the NFL. I thought it was a hell of a confession. I doubt he sees it as such, but there aren't many other people, I think, in college football talking out loud like that about, and it's probably because not every team gets to treat the portal like it's free agency. Maybe TCU, when they're losing defensive tackles like Dominic Williams, call it something else. But I thought it was really fascinating. And he kind of went through all of the different layers. It was funny. He did one of those like, yeah, I guess. And then he spent almost 5 minutes, it felt like, talking about these things that kind of are like pro football. And Alex, the injury report was a perfect example. His reaction was, do it like the NFL, fine us. And then he made a point to say, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The NFL has already done this. We just need to do what they're doing. And it was like, it's funny because Anwar asked about the NFL thing and you were like, I don't know. And then before it was over with, it just felt like he was a big advocate for everything NFL related and the way it was kind of connected to his program. So good job, Anwar. He wasn't biting that hook, but then he gobbled the whole damn thing.
I don't know, but what it made me think of was, Catch, that maybe he never thought of it in those exact terms. And then as the more he verbalized it and started talking it through, you know how sometimes we do shows and the more we start talking about it, we're like, yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. I think that's where he's like, yep, NFL, yep. And it'll be the thing when he starts doing interviews, he's going to refer to it like, I'll never get the credit. And it's fine, but he is correct though. Like they do have a formula that works, that is successful. And again, I know what Alex is going to say, and open up practices because that's what they do in the NFL. Like just
I don't even need open locker room. I don't want open locker room.
I don't
just
want
open
it
up
either.
some more practice. Open up some more practice. Let's just do that.
But they are correct though. And look, if you want to get they are at college football, college sports, it's professional. When people are getting paid, you're pros. That's kind of usually, for the most part, the rule of the game, right? How do you identify a person who's professional at what they do? Usually when they get paid. Well, you got people who are getting paid right now. And so they are pros. And so college sports, college football, as you see that as they're having right now, they're having to adjust and say, you know what? We are a pro franchise at this moment. We're looking at salary caps, injury reports, free agency, all the things that resemble pro sports. So yeah, instead of just trying to say, well, how do we get hold of it? Just sit down with Goodell or his people and say, what do you guys do again? What day does the injury report come out again? What do you have to report? Okay, fine. All right, good. We're good to go. And go from there. Figure out how you pay your players, salary cap stuff, all those things. You're right. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and that's why I say I think guys like Sark will be fine, and be a lot of other people are going to struggle.
Yeah, well, I can't. Gosh, if they come up with a media policy like the NFL has. Just a media policy.
Slow down, Alex.
Like you don't think the SEC could do something like that if they're trying to build this thing out that kind of way? I mean, the NFL has a media policy for a reason. They don't want people to be tyrannical about their access and stuff like that. Like you can go to the media policy and you can point at it. You can point to their sports information director, or their director of communications, say no. Like we need a quarterback this week. We need a coordinator this week, and we need to get at least one open practice. And you're like, it's right there in the policy.
It's heading in that direction now.
Please.
They've already kicked around the idea of having like open locker rooms in the SEC. I'm not saying that that's what they're going to do, but they've kicked around that idea of like having open locker rooms during the week and after games. So it'll take some time, but eventually I think that'll happen.
Oh gosh.
Hey, Anwar, I'm curious. I saw this in a tweet, and I know it was asked about in the press conference, but I don't know what the vibe is at these SEC meetings about this. So maybe you can tell us if you've heard what the conversation's been like about this. But the 85-man roster, the idea that rosters would be maximized at 85, there'd be no walk-on program, that you just would be locked into 85 guys that maybe you're forced to pay on some level all of the 85. I don't know. This is obviously stemming from the settlement last week involving the NCAA and the former athletes. And I'm curious, Sark was asked about it. And the reason why I bring it up is I saw a tweet that mentioned that numerous coaches, I guess he talked about it, Elko talked about it, someone else talked about it. So it sounded like a theme of sorts. Are you noticing that that's a thing?
It is. It's become a thing. And there's various reasons, right? So I think there's two things, Catch, that I've noticed. Whether it was Kirby Smart who was talking about it, Sark, and I'm trying to think of another coach who I had heard speak earlier today. I can't remember at the time. Anyway, the chat. There's two things. One, I think Kirby Smart said, the bad part is for kids who walk on and who have that dream of maybe playing college football, not having the ability to walk on is like a dream killer. Like there's been so many kids who have said, like, I don't get a scholarship, but I have a chance to walk on at this program and maybe earn one by my junior year, maybe one by my senior year. And so just kind of like to have that door slammed in the face, not only for those kids, but to also mention catch legacy players. How often that happens, where you have like a legacy player who their dad was such and such, and maybe they didn't live up to that, but they want to play at the school. So here they are, they're a legacy guy, being able to closing the door, obviously on those kids, something like that. But then there's also another part of it, Catch, which is them trying to figure out how the hell we do practices now. Because before, when you're able to do 2-3 things going on at one time, that's one thing. But I think it was Sark who had kind of mentioned, like, but now all of a sudden you might face a situation where you've got your 22 on the field, and then you just got other guys who are standing around, as opposed to being able to have this team on this field, this team on that field, this team on that field. And, we saw Texas this year during the spring being able to run, 2 and 3 teams at one time, 4 teams deep, right? To now eliminate that because you don't have the walk-ons. I think that's kind of like the issue is, like, how do we run practices? And I think one person said it may have to go back to ... the NFL model on how do you run practices. Like, it may, because you don't have that many people in the NFL, so they may have to learn from the NFL. Like, this is how we do practices with our limited, what is it, 53-man roster, Alex, and how many practice squad guys did it get?
So is it 12 or 13?
16.
Okay, yeah.
16, it may have to be catch something as simple as they have to go to the NFL and say, all right, well, now we don't have 120, 130 guys. We only have this many. How do we practice?
The idea is that could be implemented as soon as 2025.
That part I wasn't sure about, Catch. I don't have that one. I'm not privy. I don't know. I don't know that.
I mean, at some point the train is coming. Yes. I think they were on. I think with the finances involved, the idea was that there would be a buffer, and that maybe you're talking about the 2025 year before some of the stuff in this settlement would take into effect. So you'd still be a full year away. But
the walk-ons get grandfathered in, the ones that are currently on the.
Surely they would, Alex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're going to run
more walk-ons. But you're not going to tell.
But you can't kick them off. They've put in their time, right?
Sark mentioned his own sons. Sark's own son's a walk-on. There's a kid recently just committed to Texas. I think he was committed to Colorado State, and there's a kid out of Westlake that's
Devin and Jordan Coleman's brother.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a kid out of Westlake that's coming in as a preferred walk-on. Yeah, those kids.
Michael Taft was a walk-on.
The kid that just committed as a preferred walk-on that was committed to Tulsa.
Yeah, Tulsa. Yeah, there's I think he's a running back or something. But yeah, you're killing a lot of dreams for some of these kids, man. I don't know how I feel about it, but hey,
I don't think how we feel about it matters.
Yeah, no, it's true. But Jason, and someone said it in the chat, but it's true. Like, D West says it. I mean, Jason, you do this all the time. How many kids may have had a scholarship offer and they turned it down because they want to be a walk-on at this particular school, and then that option is just gone.
Yeah, you're killing a lot of kids' dreams to go to their dream school and just be a part of the program. And it's crazy. I guess, I mean, what is the overriding reason for it? Just to maybe help some of the lower level schools, so that schools like, I don't know. I mean, what's the benefit to it, I guess?
Well, I think that they're just trying to figure out their ass from their elbow right now, knowing that players are now going to be paid by the university, but they haven't figured out what's the amount of money? How are you going to break it down? What does it look like for Title IX? What does it look like between major sports and non-major sports? There's just a billion questions and no answers. And this is one of these. I wonder if it's as simple as the idea that some schools could, if they wanted to, could have larger scholar. We talked about this morning on the Monday Overreaction show. There's some thought that maybe Texas could have 100 scholarship players if they wanted. So I would imagine, in light of these nebulous answers and realities that exist until they figure out the rules, everybody's scrambling to try to figure out what the new protocols are going to be. Can we live in a world where Texas and Georgia can take 100, but other schools can't? What kind of advantage does that bring? I don't know. We're on a new frontier, Jason. They're trying to figure out the aftermath of this settlement, and I don't have all the answers to that. This was kind of new to me. I didn't realize that there we're live, Alex. I didn't know that was on the table. I thought there had been more discussion about
raising the limits
above 100 or above 85.
And again, whatever they decide, right? They may have to change it again 2 years from now. It's going to be a lot of trial and error, it feels like, man. So, whatever they decide doesn't mean it's going to be the right decision. Doesn't mean it's going to stick long term. But yeah, so it seems like some wholesale changes coming for sure.
I mean, Catch, is it as simple as, hey, if you got to pay players and you can't have, and you can't have walk-ons, like you just got to start being selective on who you can pay, and that they don't fall into that.
Well, because I'm sure there are lawyers who are saying you can call them whatever you want to. They're on the team. They're part of the player group because those guys will play on special teams. I mean, they may be free, however you want to label that loosely, but they're a part of this billion-dollar enterprise. And, Bert Auburn is a walk-on. There's some interesting little elements to all of – because Sark gets asked the Michael Kern punter question today.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the way they answer those kicking questions is they'll invite 4 or 5 walk-on kickers to just come kick it out.
Mac used to do it all the time, and it worked. Mac, Dusty Mangum, he got some pretty good kickers that way. So.
Without a walk-on program, your special teams in college football would be greatly impacted. You would have better special teams units because better players have to play on the special teams, like the NFL. It's, you have to be at a certain level in the NFL before they decide you no longer have to be on special teams. And the kicking stuff gets real. It's hard for it's hard for the NFL to look at college football and know for sure which guys are going to work out, which guys aren't from a kicking perspective. They get some guys, I guess they just absolutely know. But more times than not, it feels like a total crapshoot. A guy like Cameron Dicker really needs right time, right place. It doesn't always just happen. But it's still a tricky deal. You don't know. And in college football, half the guys that you, at best, that you take on scholarship at the kicking position end up not working out. It has been a crapshoot at Texas as far back as I can remember covering the program, that sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't hit. Sometimes your walk-on shows up and takes the job away from a starting kicker. I'm absolutely fascinated about the ramifications, Anwar, of an 85-man limit on your roster, and that's it. It's wild.
Yeah. First of all, as it relates to kickers, at that point, Catch, you are transfer portaling that thing like no other, man. I mean, you're looking at who's the Rice kicker, who's the SMU kicker. Like, you're going to, hey, what does those numbers look like? That's what I'm never signing one. Like, I'm literally transfer portal a kicker every single year, and that's just how I would do business. And yeah, right. If they cut it down to 85, Catch, and how do they, conduct practices? What's the travel team look like, Catch, at that point? Like, how many people are going to road games? How many people have to stay behind? Like, it'd be interesting. I'll be curious. And then, Catch, at that point, and I hate to be that bearer of bad news, but at that point, if you cut it down to 85, you don't need that many support staff employees, for them. So,
the fat's going to get trimmed in college athletics.
Well, and the other thing too, like, won't you, if they cut down the size, won't they need some of the tools that the NFL needs, like the injured reserve or the physically unable to perform list? And then will roster moves up within that 85 be allowed in season, which opens up a whole new thing to where if in season, like, let's say you got into a spot where it was with the kickers and your 2 scholarship guys can't kick, right? and you're like, what are we going to do here? Like, would there be a guy off the street that you could invite in? You know,
No,
like
you're frozen at 85. It's not like
you're screwed.
So
if you have an injury crisis, you got to make do with what you. That's wild, because what if you really have an injury crisis where you no longer have enough guys to play? NFL can sign a quarterback off the street.
Yeah.
But you can't do that in a world where you're frozen with your sky. It's not like in the middle of a semester you can just bring somebody in. Like, that's impossible.
Catch it like the old high school days where that defensive tackle is also the kicker, and who kicks the extra points. Like, you're just going to see guys just running straight and kicking.
You would have to imagine there would be some trickle down in terms of what can you never run out of.
Mm-hmm.
From a roster standpoint, just take the kicker positions. They've got like 5 kickers and 5 punters on the team. So that if somebody had their leg broken, somebody's there to take the job. They'll always have guys that can kick and punt. But if you only have a kicker and a punter, like the NFL, how many punters are on a roster in the NFL? One.
Dude gets the flu or something. You're like, you're screwed that week. Yeah. So
they really got to think this thing through. Whatever it is that they decide, it will be because of money. It will be because of they don't want more. It will be in the name of what keeps us from getting sued again.
The good news is some of those, we're talking specifically kickers and punters, most of those dudes can probably do both, in a pinch. Or maybe you have a David Ash who can actually punt pretty well. You're all right, quarterback, get your ass out there and punt for us this week. But a lot of moving parts, dude. A lot of things they'll have to figure out.
Of all the things, though, that they could have talked about out of that settlement, the roster size is the one that at SEC meetings, you've got head coaches, I think, making a point to talk about this. They're getting asked about it, but they're ready. They've got a canned answer. They've given some thought to what they want to say. And I thought Sark's answer was great today, him evoking his own son. I thought if you wanted to give an answer for why not, I think Sark's answer is the answer, but it may be romanticism has nothing to do with anything that comes next. And how they pay for all of this is central to the conversation. I can't wait on war until one day they put out the NCAA just puts out a media release, or the SEC puts out a media release and says, these are our rules. We got 20 million. We're spreading them out amongst at one point very soon, we're going to get the answer to those. But these are all things we know nothing about right now. And it makes it hard to even know what comes next.
Well, what's going to come next is that, at some point in our lifetime, the NCAA won't exist, because all these schools are just going to go independent and just say, you know what, we don't have to deal with any of these rules. They're going to be 133 franchises that are out there that are run by their owners, and they'll make their own set of rules, and they won't bow down to what the NCAA does.
Alex, the roster size could be the thing that kickstarts the whole thing. Because can you imagine every coach in the SEC doesn't want to abide by an 85-man roster that's frozen?
You got to make sure your left guard can deep snap and all this stuff. I'm telling you, man, it adds a whole layer, man, and all kinds of questions.
Jeff Banks would look like a visionary for that Lance St. Louis offer.
Yeah, I guess no comment, man. I don't know anything about that.
No, you find a deep snapper and you put him on scholarship, and when everybody goes, "What are you taking a deep snapper for?"
Yeah.
So we've got 85-man rosters. We can't just allocate those. We can't just workshop that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's clear that like you said, Catch, and like Anwar said. It feels like Anwar, so I've never been to a conference's, spring meetings. I've never but this is the spot where they're getting together. Like Sark was leaving the meeting to say he's going to a meeting with all those other coaches, and I'm guessing the officials from the conference are going to be this is where they're going to start workshopping it, right? I mean, you're in the belly of the beast.
Like the owners' meetings. It's just like the owners' meetings. It's just simple as that. Going out to Arizona. And it's simple. Let's go with stuff. Let's talk about rules. Let's talk about things that we want to implement. Let's talk to officials. Let's do some media things. It's more low key. Not as many people are here. Just like the owners' meetings.
Onward, you've got Lane Kiffin coming up in 9 meetings. Get the hell
Yeah.
on out of here.
All right, buddy.
We will wrap this stuff up. Thanks for watching the Orange Bloods podcast. For myself, for Anwar, who's on his way to interview Lane Kiffin, for Jason and Alex. Good stuff on Orange Bloods today, by the way. Good content all over the place. Come hop in, visit us, take a free trial, take it for a spin.
Recruiting Q&A posted here in a minute. We might have a commitment tomorrow. Anwar's in Destin. It's a surprisingly active week. So, yeah, good time to join.
There's no off season.
There's no off season.
There's only vacations in the off season, but there's never an off season. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow bright and early. Alex and Anwar will be back for the old fashioned. I will be with Chad tomorrow. We'll have the recruiting hour tomorrow. Lots of recruiting stuff to talk about. Official visits really kicking off this weekend. Maybe not in Austin, but Jason, I've already started putting together a list of key targets who are taking visits this weekend. And it's basically everybody. So business is picking up in recruiting. We will see you guys tomorrow with another full slate of shows right here on Orange Bloods Live. Thanks to Specs for being a wonderful partner. We'll see you soon.